Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 67 of the Noclip podcast. Happy drug day to you all. Jeremy, happy drug day.
Happy drug day.
Frank, happy drug day. What's your favorite drug?
Caffeine.
Yeah, Jesse was shaming me. If we hadn't taken the 2 weeks off in January, this would have been episode 69 on 420. But we're you know, I'll take that one on the chin. I needed to deal with my mental health. Maybe I should have just, I don't know, had smoked some weed and done a fellatio party with somebody. That's for future Danny to worry about. We're here not to talk about fellatio parties, but to have a good old chat about some video games. Weird week for video game news. Lots of weird movies getting announced. Lots of cancelled Star Wars projects getting brought back again. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about. And on the Noclip side, we have a new documentary out, Among Us.
For a moment in time, Among Us was the biggest game in the world, a game that was everywhere, seemingly played by everyone, one that you couldn't escape even at your local mall. It was a zeitgeist game, forever connected to a particular culture and moment in time.
Congratulations to the whole team for putting that together. It was a really good job. It's about an hour long. It's all about Inner Sloth and their, I guess, development of their humble little mobile party game, which ended up taking over the entire world. And we sort of talk about that whole process, the early stuff, the hype train, and kind of after the peak, like what they did after the peak, to try and retain the audience they have and all that good stuff. And hopefully it's a good watch if you're an Among Us fan, or if you're somebody who's sort of been looking over the shoulder of all the kids being like, what's all that fuss about? Does a good job of explaining it. Jeremy, tremendous job cutting that one together. It was a fun collaborative edit for us. You did the lion's share of the work on that. What was it like seeing the final version? Because it's always a little bit different to the one you hand over.
It was this was an interesting one because I kind of like got the whole shape of it and handed it off to you before any of the figurine stuff was in place, and obviously you hosting it wasn't in place. So it was fun because this one I kind of did in the background while we did Black Mesa. Like this one I think I did maybe started, I don't know, I can't even remember when it started. Yeah. It was months ago. But it took me, it was such a prolonged process that watching you after having handed it off a while back, I kind of got to re-enjoy it a little bit. It was like a totally different documentary than when I handed it off to you, which is kind of the nice thing about the collaborative edits is, you know, it's like a fresh coat of paint makes it a new documentary. But I think it's a really interesting one. I think that it's even if you're like I have never played Among Us. I'll come clean on this one.
Awesome.
But it's like, it's more of a story about a small development team that started out as like a handful of Newgrounds creators. And I played a bunch of Newgrounds games and watched shorts back in the day there. So that part of it interests me. It's also interesting as someone who dabbles with game dev because they talk a lot about one of their early games pre-Among Us and how they kind of like continued to iterate it over and over and over and it wasn't working out. And that's interesting to me because in my shame-filled mind, anytime I'm like, I don't know if I should abandon this project, it's nice to have like someone who is, you know, someone who made a game that's like a part of the cultural zeitgeist be like, yeah, we worked on this game for like months and then we just like shit canned it.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's a non-linear process of being creative in anything. So it's cool to hear someone who's so highly successful at it be like, yeah, sometimes you just work for months on a thing and it's bad.
And they were super humble. It was really easy to talk to them about all those elements of luck and favor and fortune and what stuff they were in control of and what stuff they were ultimately out of control of. And they were very candid about like how little PR they did for it and how they were sort of reacting to people playing it and the steps they made to make it sort of, I guess, to allow for the opportunity for it to go viral, like adding online multiplayer, which was a big request from their community. But ultimately like how they were sort of reacting to the wave as much as anyone was. You know, they didn't have a big marketing budget. They had no marketing budget for this game. So It was cool. I think it's always fun when I was watching a bunch of the comments, which are just a complete nonsense. I love it, man. Give us the engagement. Just spam our comments. I don't give a shit.
People just saying sus over and over and over.
Sus.
Everything is sus. This is
Among
sus.
Us.
Among Us. They say
Among
Among
Us.
Us as well. Yeah, the host is sus. This doc is sus. These people are sus. This game is everything is sus.
Sure. Drive the algorithm, baby.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Feed it.
Feed us, please. Yeah. But yeah, it was cool to see as well people saying like, oh, like I wasn't sure what they'd be like if they'd be like super up their own arses because they're now clearly like super rich and successful, but obviously it hasn't gone to their heads, so that's pretty cool.
I found Marcus's perspective very refreshing and kind of surprising in that vein because it would be so easy to look at that success and be like, yeah, we're like great game designers, we like did it, and instead he's kind of like, yeah, it's not perfect. Like once you've made it, there's kind of like a gilded prison that you put yourself in where you're like bound to this one project that, I mean, especially someone who came out of a world. I mean, you talked to him about this a little bit, but someone who came out of a world where he can make games, iterate quickly, and then just like put them out and move on. This is a totally different process being like chained to this game for years on end and building a company around it. It's just like, it's a gilded prison or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a phrase for this. It's gold prison, whatever it is. It's a prison made of gold.
Yeah, I always like to say when it comes to this stuff that it's like the difficult second album or something. You know what I mean? Like that first breakthrough. Like they stepped up to the plate, maybe whiffed on the first two balls. But sorry, I went to an A's game yesterday, so it's on my mind. But then like knocked it out of the park on the third one. You know, but this is the second time up at the plate, and you're like, and even him like saying like, I don't know how to make 3D games. Like, so like, I guess I'll have to be a creative director and stuff.
I think I've seen the trajectory for my career as being ending up in the creative director scene. Like, I just thought about this a few days ago. Like, what if I wanted to make a 3D game? I don't know how to do anything 3D. Forrest, I don't think knows how to code very much 3D, but we could do it. We could just start hiring people and do it.
So it's funny, yeah. It's always interesting. I was having a lot of thoughts about that with Rogue Legacy too, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Just based on what Jesse was saying last week, I gave it a go, and I really love it. But yeah, that same type of thing where like they had that sort of breakthrough go of it, and then sometimes you need to kind of take your time with whatever the follow up is. So yeah, go check out the documentary if you want to. I think it's an easy watch. I think it's very chill and enjoyable, and shout out to Dennis Walsh as well for getting all that gameplay. Denjamin, as his character name was, you'll see quite a lot in the gameplay footage.
Also, one more aspect of it that I think is interesting is the kind of like the handing of the keys of control from like traditional media over to streamers is an interesting aspect of this. The way that that streamers have become sort of like the kingmakers of, especially of like small independent games. There's like a running thread through the documentary where you can see the Steam charts of how many players there are concurrently. And as it just goes like astronomically high is kind of when the streamers get involved in it. I'm someone who only watches like a couple of different Twitch streamers, and I'm not super into that world, but that was like a really interesting thing to deep dive into and just see how like that kind of a cultural mechanism functions. Yeah,
it was neat. I saw all the various like streamers you pulled footage from over the course of its sort of slow and steady rise into infamy. And what was funny in the comments is that you'll see a lot of people, they reference specific streamers like Soda Poppin and folks like that who were like sort of the big jumps that the game had, or like the jump that it had in Brazil or Korea or all these different parts of the world. But it was also funny in the comments saying like, oh, I found Among Us because of this streamer, I found it because of this streamer. Once the big streamers start working on something, it really propagates out to everyone on Twitch. There was a time where it was the only game anyone was playing.
The Twitch meta, the meta right. can like make a game go from like they talk about having like enough players to make up 2 servers all of a sudden, and then it goes from that to a game with like rip-off merch being sold in a stall in like a Mexican street market.
500 million active users in 1 month. That is something ridiculous. Yes, check out our documentary on Among Us over on youtube.com/noclipvideo. Like all our docs, it is fully closed captioned and has no advertising.
So how did this relatively basic looking game made by a handful of people become bigger than the biggest games on Earth? Well, like so many games we've covered here on Noclip, the story of Among Us starts on Newgrounds.
All right, let's get into some of the news. Shout out to Jesse, who just had to bounce out of the call because his internet was not being nice. His internet was clearly enjoying 420 in the way it was meant to be done, and whenever he talked, he sounded like a transformer robot. So unfortunately, we don't have Jesse for the rest of the podcast. But he does produce this podcast every week and puts in all the awesome little tidbits. Maybe he'll just put in a little tidbit right now of him saying something. I don't know.
Hey, it's Jesse. Just want to give a big shout out to Kojiko. Thanks for having such reliable service.
It's impossible. Maybe, like, I can probably cause him problems. We can say, like, maybe there's the sound of a toilet flushing right now. I don't know. Frank, what sound would you like?
My first thought was ICP's Hocus Pocus for like 5 seconds.
Okay, okay, 5 seconds. We might get away. I don't know. Actually, the YouTube version might not like that. Maybe if Jesse could do it himself.
Yeah.
Abracadabra, boom shaka day. I'm Violent J and I'm back like a vertebrae. And I come with a hat full of tricks, trunk full of Fago, car full of fat chicks. What are these fucking lyrics, Frank? What is this? Why did you sign me up for this? The fuck?
Jeremy, any requests?
Maybe like a Michael Bay transformer to simulate what it was like when his internet disconnected.
Why do you all pick these like copyrighted things? Trying to get our.
Is that copyright? It's just the sound effect of like. You could just get like a trash truck opening the back. It's the same sound.
Wow, real Michael Bay fan over there. It seems like. Have you seen Ambulance?
No. Is that a film?
Yeah, Ambulance with LA in the ambulance. So you know it's shot in LA because you'd never know otherwise because it's not clearly shot in LA. Yeah, it's an ambulance. It's like Speed but stupid and with drones.
It's
Frank's
like
seen
Speed
it.
but stupid.
Yeah, it's man.
It's cans.
Is it my favorite movie of the year so far? I mean, well, man.
Hey, man. Fucking Jared Leto might be listening.
Oh man, well. There is no ambulance Discord server, so they missed their marketing team missed the boat on that. But
Just trying to get home. We don't get to walk off into the sunset. I have a plan.
But I guess real fast, I just will say while we're on this thread, is Ambulance is I think my favorite movie theater experience of the year. It is so fun. It really is like a 2-hour roller coaster. It's insane. It's nonsensical. They also shoot part of it at the LA Convention Center. So randomly in the middle of a bank heist getaway, they're running around E3 and Anime
Kensha
Expo.
Hall.
Yeah,
awesome.
I really adore it. I think you have to see it in theaters. If you watch it at home, watch it with friends. But it's one of those like dumb bro out movies where it's like, okay, none of this matters. It's amazing. But I really did like Ambulance.
Ambulance. I can't say it without the la in there. All right, let's jump into a little bit of this news that Jesse prepared. Amy Hennig. I don't know what's going on over at Lucasfilm Games, but John Drake is working some magic over there because we had Monkey Island a couple of weeks ago, and now we have a new Star Wars game, which is being done by Lucasfilm Games and Skydance New Media, which is the sort of Amy Hennig-led creative collaboration coming off the back of the closure of Visceral Games and the cancellation of that Star Wars project, which was known apparently as Project Ragtag. So Amy Hennig, when she has her eyes set on the prey, I guess she gets it. Star Wars game cancelled, new Star Wars game getting greenlit. Really cool. What are your thoughts? It's kind of hard to dive into this one with any depth. You know, she was creative director on a bunch of really cool games like Legacy of Kain she worked on, and Uncharted and Jack, and what was it, Michael Jordan's, what did I say earlier, Michael
Trouble
Jordan's
in Windy City or something.
Chaos in the Windy City.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta play that game.
It's showtime.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? What do you think? Exciting?
Yeah, because I remember being really bummed when the previous Star Wars game got canceled. It was like I feel like we've been waiting very long for the next Amy Hennig project. So hopefully this one goes. I personally, I'm neutral when it comes to Star Wars. I like that Souls-like Star Wars game that came out a few years ago. I thought that game was really great. But if Amy Hennig is involved in a project, I'm down to play it.
Yes, that was Titanfall developers creating a terrific Star Wars game. What was Respawn's one called? It was called, they all have so many this happened a few weeks ago. I could not remember the name of this game. That is the problem.
Jedi Fallen Order.
There we go. Fallen Order. They've all such. There's a lot of cancelled Star Wars games too, with like 1313 and a bunch of those. Yeah. So any thoughts, Jeremy?
No, I mean, if Amy Hennig is on it, I'm interested. But beyond that, I again, like Frank said, I'm not hugely into Star Wars, but I think that Star Wars is like an interesting enough setting for. It's not enough to get me interested, but like it's not. I'm neutral on it. I'd be interested if it's done well.
These two neutral Star Wars people. You're like contrarians in the Star Wars universe. You're not quite on board with either the Jedi or the fucking Sith.
Like I do love Jar Jar Binks. Like if it sucks, I love it. So
Gungans not dying without a fight. We are warriors. That's why you know liking us, Mr. Dinks.
Did you guys see the thing about, I guess it's not canonical, but there's like a graphic novel about Jar Jar Binks' backstory? Did you guys, Frank is laughing like he's seen this. Danny, did you?
No.
Okay, so...
Did he go to Jamaica on holidays or something? Or
he was like, it's like a backstory in one of the like graphic novels, and I guess he goes on like a boat trip with his dad, who is, I think his dad was named George Binks, if I'm not mistaken. God. And
George Binkus.
The best part of it is that they get shipwrecked on an island, Jar Jar Binks and his parents, and George Binks gets, and apologies if I'm messing up any of the details here, but I've read about this twice, so I think I got it pretty nailed down. George Binks gets so annoyed with Jar Jar Binks that he pulls out a blaster and puts it to his head. And Jar Jar Binks' mother is like, no, don't do it. Think of your son. And this has the reverse effect of causing George Binks to shoot himself because he's so annoyed by Jar Jar.
Oh my God.
I believe he survives, but there is a Star Wars graphic novel where Jar Jar Binks' father kills himself because Jar Jar Binks is so obnoxious.
I thought Jar Jar Binks was just from an irritating species. Like this was not, I did not realize that even within his own kin, he is an outcast and completely insufferable.
I think that's like part of the plot in like Phantom Menace is the reason he's out there. He's like, he's not with the guns. It's like, no, go out, get out of here, go wander around in the field and get killed in this robot army. Yeah.
They're trying to get rid of him. Yeah. Can you imagine if you like knew Jar Jar Binks and you're like, yeah, this guy's so annoying. And then he's like, yo, you still gotta beat my parents. And then you go home with him and they're like, hello, I'm George Binks. And you're like, wait,
where's half your head?
Well, that too, but also like, you're like, they're not all like this. Like, Jesus Christ. You're like, I'm like a Star Wars racist. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, I'm George Binks. Pleasure to meet you.
Can I get
you
like
the
anything?
most like dour, like soft-spoken people ever. I was like, oh well, nice to meet you. And how was your day today? And he's like, Misa.
Yeah, you realize that you've been a Star Wars racist this whole time.
Oh my, yeah, and he's just a prick. That's all. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, from game movies from movie games to game movies, I guess. 2 video game movies were announced. Which of these are you more excited for? Also, Jesse could have easily made both of these up and it would have been impossible to tell. Apparently, Streets of Rage is getting a movie. Derek Kolstad, who was writing credits on John Wick and Nobody, which is the... I have not seen that
movie.
Yeah, is that good? I've only seen 1,000,001 ads for it, and I didn't really want to watch it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either. Yeah, it seemed like a movie that was kind of trying to. It might be great, but it seems to me like it was a movie that was like, hey, everyone loves Better Call Saul. What if we made like a movie that had Bob
Wick.
Odenkirk? Yeah, exactly.
Everybody get to the basement.
What is happening?
Don't call 911.
And also, the producers of Sonic the Hedgehog and Denzel Washington's Equalizer. So, you know, they've produced some movies in the past, I guess. Streets of Rage. What do you want in a Streets of Rage movie? Let's go through all of them. Somebody punches a phone box and eats a turkey. I guess the soundtracks, you kind of want to make sure. Could you imagine watching a movie and that soundtrack plays, though? It would never work. Like, as much as I adore those soundtracks, but... Could you imagine just like a serious shot of a city and it's like
they would have to needle drop Go Straight at some point. Like that would be like in the big final fight. Like that will hit. I kind of like the John Wick movies because they're lean, mean stunt pieces. I feel like this would have to be like an 80-minute no frills. Like, okay, something happens, let's go through and just beat up a bunch of people, crazy shots. If they do it that way, great. Yeah.
Yeah, but the aesthetic of Streets of Rage is always in this sort of like I don't know, what would you even call it? It was kind of like that, you know, the 80s. It wasn't quite Warriors and it wasn't quite RoboCop, but it was in a sort of like dystopic version of LA, or, you know, 'cause like, and also like some of the stuff, like the baddies were always like 3 times larger than every other human, you know, which is kind of never really explained or thought about.
You would need the same 5 actors to appear throughout the entire movie as the same bad guys in palette swap costumes.
Like that woman in the fucking leather the leather getup with the whip.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it for like 2 seconds, Streets of Rage pulled into reality would just be complete nonsense. You'd have Axel holding on to, you know, like all the double moves you could do where you like grab someone's waist and then they just kick forward. That wouldn't work in real life. There's no force being applied there. You're just being held by the waist and kicking someone.
Yeah, I'll be eager to see what tone they land on, because like if they lean into like the 80s like city pop, like I don't know, like style of it, it could be like how Edgar Wright does his action, or like how Scott Pilgrim is. It's where it's like, okay, that's like tongue-in-cheek video gaming, but it works.
Sweet coins.
If they make it way too serious and gritty, then it's like that. Then I feel like that misses the tone of the game. Man, I'm trying to even think of just video game movies in general are always like, they're always off, but they're kind of entertaining for how off they are. I kind of had fun watching the Mortal Kombat movie. Like I just watched it at HBO Max.
Yeah, that new one was good.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's Scorpion, there's Sub-Zero. Okay, sure. Yeah, I guess I'd watch another one. Like it's TV. So yeah, you know, Godspeed.
Mortal Kombat's really dumb, but at least the self-seriousness of it kind of works in its favor a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I guess good luck to them figuring that one out. And then the other one, Jesus Christ, I don't know what to say about this. This looks like categories or something. Somebody just fucking made this one up by throwing balls in a pachinko machine. But apparently, now again, Jesse could have completely made this up, but I'm going to go and assume that he's not telling us a fib here. Apparently there's a Minecraft movie starring Jason Momoa.
Hell yeah, there is.
And Jared Hess is directing. Jared Hess of Napoleon Dynamite fame is directing. Jason Momoa, is he Steve? Is he Herobrine? Who does Jason
Or is
Momoa
it like
play?
Is it a Space Jam situation where you have a real life human drawn into this cartoon
that'd be
world?
so much better. That'd be so much better. So I saw this, and he plays a character that I'd never heard of. I've never played Minecraft, but I know of Minecraft Steve, and I don't think it was him. I feel like it was a side character, which I didn't know there were other characters.
I don't think
in
vanilla Minecraft had side characters. I think maybe some of the story mode stuff they added maybe does.
Cool.
I don't know. Yeah. Frank's nodding his head.
Yeah,
do you think?
There's Minecraft is such a massive world, but like there's the Telltale games with Minecraft story mode. There's all these NPCs. There's so much lore and stuff built into it. I don't know what if any of it is actually canon. But yeah, it's because if I try to talk about it, I'll fumble everything. But
does it feel like they're maybe 5 years late on this one?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know who this is for. I mean, maybe Minecraft is kind of like evergreen popularity, but I feel like the time to make a movie out of it was a long time ago. If you're gonna go that route,
yeah, Lego is kind of as you can see. The Lego movie you kind of could have done at any stage, maybe. I mean,
it'd
it'd
be a way cooler movie if it was just kind of like a procedural survival movie where Jason Momoa was like Minecraft Steve or whatever, and it was just like him, and he's like, I gotta dig into the ground. There's like creatures coming tonight, and then he's just like hiding inside at night, and it just kind of spans like a week of him just like doing that, and building like a diamond pickaxe.
Yeah, like Castaway.
Yes, I like that. Except like he's in bed and he hears like. And then suddenly the whole house explodes.
Yeah, hell yeah. And then like by the end of the movie, he's got like redstone powered automation. He's like building circuits out of redstone. And then the movie just ends on kind of like a somber, like, you know, he's like, I guess I'll make a life out here. And then you're just like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah, it's very sincere, like a single actor movie. What would you call that? Just him just like dealing with the shit, trying to make a portal out of obsidion so he can get to the nether.
You write it like it's like a stage play. Like he does like a monologue in the middle. He's just like, a blockhead like me is stranded in a dark world like this. And like, like super serious.
Waiting for Godot, but him and a creeper or something, or him
Hell
and
yeah.
Hare O'Brien or something.
Guys, I think this is a better movie. I think
Yeah.
we need to get to the studio heads.
Well, I mean, it's a Jared Hest. It's the Napoleon Dynamite director. So you're like, you gotta think that he's gonna lean weird. Like maybe Jason Momoa is the stunt casting that we're seeing for this crazy idea.
There's All Is Lost, which is that like 2013 survival movie where it's just Robert Redford on a boat that's like slowly sinking over the course of 2 hours, and it's like beautiful. So
Yeah.
if it's that, but with Minecraft, or he starts, on the boat and then it crashes on the Minecraft island, then like, oh, that's awesome. And there's no one else in the movie, just them and Jason Momoa. Yeah, I think we just wrote the best possible version of the Minecraft movie.
Yeah, delete this podcast because this idea needs to be bottled and sold.
No, we need to mail this podcast to ourselves, so then we own the copyright for the idea, and Jared Hess can't have it. Best of luck to both of them making those completely crazy video game movies, and best of luck to Amy Hennig and that team over at Skydance in making their movie video game. On to video games we have played. Jeremy, what you got here? Iron Lung.
I played a game
about polio.
It's just, I was thinking about viral pandemics and longitudinal illness. No, I celebrated 420. I figured it was the 420 episode. I figured I'd celebrate the night before and remind myself what weed is all about and get so high that I was terrified in my own home. And I played a game called Iron Lung by David Smansky. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but I did Google it.
This is of Dusk fame.
Of Dusk fame, of New Blood fame, of Dusk fame. He's made some other games that are like less well known than Dusk, that are kind of like narrative horror games. But
wait,
Dusk
this is new? This game is new.
Yeah.
March 9th.
It came out March.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is it's one of those games. It can't really be spoiled. It's very short, and it's like, but I'm not going to talk about it beyond the first there's an opening card that tells you the narrative, and then like what you'd see in the first 30 seconds of game.
Okay.
Beyond that, I will not spoil anything because it's only about an hour, but it's definitely worth playing. So it is a game where you are a convict in a future world where like the planets are kind of like scoured and unlivable, and the universe is dying. Everyone lives on like space stations. The remaining survivors are all people who were like in space stations and stuff. And so as like infrastructure is breaking down, they're desperately searching for a way to kind of like renew life. They're searching on like planets and celestial bodies, looking for like a hope at restarting life, essentially. And so they find a moon, I believe, with oceans filled with blood on it.
Oh my God.
And you are a convict whose sentencing is that they weld you inside of a tiny submarine and drop you into an ocean of blood to go investigate various points of interest. Which is like such a fucking cool pitch. Just out of the bat, like this game is brilliant because it's super minimalist. It's something that David Smansky made on the side while he was working on other New Blood properties and working on Gloomwood primarily with Dylan Rogers, which also people should look up Gloomwood if they don't know about it. But it's only $6. It's about an hour long, and you are controlling a submarine, but you can't see out of it. So all you have is a map with no indicator on it that tells you where you are on the map, and you have there's 3 buttons in front of you, 4 buttons. There's one that rotates the angle of the sub back and forth, left and right. That's 2 buttons, and then like the other 2 buttons are to accelerate or decelerate, move backwards. And so essentially all you're doing is you can see your coordinate where you are on the map and the angle, and then there's like proximity indicators. If you're getting too close to a wall, it starts beeping like left light, right light, front, back. And so you just can't see. So, and the only thing that you have to do is go around taking pictures of points of interest. So there's a button at the back of the sub that you hit, and it takes a picture from the outside of the sub. And it's like super grainy, low res picture.
Oh, it sounds kind of like the Scout in Outer Wilds or something.
I was literally just about to say it is like a super minimalist horror version of Outer Wilds in some way, but it is it's so fun. It is like, and it is the controlling of the sub is like a little tedious, but I kind of think that that's part of the experience because it is such a muted kind of like quiet, somber experience that anytime you hear or see anything, anytime the most minor thing happens, even if it's just like a little audio cue that like doesn't amount to anything, it's terrifying. Like every single little shift in the tension becomes like a massive scare. Yeah, it's cool. It reminded me a little bit of like reading a book or something where because
like a short story or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. It reminded me. It's almost like an Edgar Allan Poe kind of like anthology short, where, but also because your senses are cut off from the outside world, it does this very kind of clever thing where it allows your imagination to fill in the gaps. Also because the photos you're taking outside of the sub are so grainy that you're kind of like, did I see something? Is that a thing out there in the mist or whatever?
That's cool.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a very clever use of minimalism because, like as mentioned, David Szymanski made this as a side project, so you have to obviously be kind of ruthless with scale and scope and things like that. And this is a game that it leans into that and embraces it, and kind of like it feels bigger than it is because it's hiding a lot of itself from you, but that plays very well into the conceit.
Awesome. Have you played any of the other games he has here? Because there's a David Szymanski publisher bundle that has the Moon Sliver, which I think I might have played a long time ago, 2014, the Music Machine, and A Wolf in Autumn. So he has a couple of these little ones.
I've only played Dusk, but I'll probably go back and play some of his other games now. I really enjoyed Iron Lung. I thought it was very, very clever, and I think that David Szymanski understands how to do like a weird little kind of like gimmick is the wrong word. Whatever the positive version of gimmick is, to have like a very strong core concept and then just kind of like do that for an hour. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, a gimmick is sort of like a derogatory term because it feels like a small thing that sort of overstays or over extends its importance or something. I like the idea of having a kind of a neat idea like this, but also not like overdoing it. You know what I mean? Like trying to turn it into a whole thing. Like clearly he was like, oh, this, maybe the brief, like you said, because it's a side project, was making something small anyway. But also like, yeah, like it's funny. Like I'm definitely of an age now where I will sit down and play one game for an hour, like watch a movie. Like that seems like cool. So thanks for bringing it. I had no idea about this. Follow him on Twitter. I didn't even see this.
The only other thing that I want to say about it is I think that it's interesting how when I started it, I went through like a peak of, oh, this is a really cool control scheme, and then immediately like dropped into like, oh, this is going to be really tedious to control because you're constantly bringing up your map and like checking your coordinates and like trying to figure out where you are on the map. But if you push through that, there's a very fun kind of like mastery of these really clunky controls that you get over time where you're like, you look at the map and you're like, all right, there's a tunnel coming up. It's going to be like, I might be a little bit too far on the Y axis. And then as the proximity indicators start going off, you're not even checking the map. You're just like, I know the shape of the tunnel and I can navigate based on the cues. So it's weird. It like, because it's like the sub is shutting off your sight, but then also you're kind of voluntarily pushing farther into that by also like eventually checking the map less, and so you're kind of just like going into Daredevil mode where you're like, all I need is my mental image of the map and the proximity sensors, and you're just kind of like staring off into space like a prophet or like the Seers in Minority Report.
I love it. Yeah, you are one with the lung. That's Iron Lung, available on Steam, as Jeremy said, for $5.99. Go check it out. I finished Weird West. For me, it stuck the landing. It was really good. The fourth journey I went on, because the game is, not to spoil anything, but the structure of the game is very interesting. It's kind of like 5 journeys you kind of go on. The fourth one for me, I've seen some people say that's kind of when they fell off. I was stuck with some people that I didn't really like, and I just decided to kill them all. I was just like, I'm just going to murder all of my allies in this story because I think they're bad. I think they're bad people. And I was like waiting for the game to like tell me to stop, or, have some person who's like the head of the gang run away or be too hard to kill or be invulnerable or something happen. And it just didn't. It just rolled with it. And I was like, what? What is this game? I've murdered all of my quest givers. I've like butchered this entire like group of people. I've gotten all awesome shit when they die. Like all this cool weapons and I can murder anyone. And like, it's just like, no, all right. You do you, bro. Let's keep going. I'm like, what the fuck is this game? So I love this game. I'm on my second playthrough now, which is something I never do with games. I'm very interested when this comes up in Game of the Year discussions with people, because for me, it's in the top 3 at least at the moment. I really vibed it. I've seen a lot of people fall off. I've some people attached to it, and I've other folks in our Discord have been talking about how much they love it. But I'm wondering, and I don't want to say it, but I'm wondering if some people were playing this, I don't want to say wrong, but like, I'm wondering if folks don't realize quite how dynamic or capable the story is of just rolling with the punches. So now I'm going through it this time with my chaos playthrough. I am like going through and finding characters that I know will come up later and just murdering them and being like, what's going to happen when I get to like the last chapter and this whole thing happens and this person's been dead this entire time. I think I said last week there was one character in it who is supposed to be part of, I think it's like a whole alternate ending maybe for the game, I assume. And he was just pissing me off, so I just murdered him. and then it came up, and I'm like, I'm being very careful to talk around spoilers here, but the ending of the game is really good at like reflecting your choices. Like it like, you know, the way a lot of games, these types of RPGs, they have that sort of double cone problem where everything gets wide at a certain point because you have all this choice, but then they're like, oh no, we need to get you to the end of the game with the story that we wrote. So we're just going to kind of make the cone funnel back to this point, like the Mass Effect 3 problem, right? Where you complete that game and ultimately none of the decisions you've made matter really at all. All of the decisions, or a lot of the decisions you make in this game, even stuff you didn't know were decisions, come back to haunt you in this. And it's very clever. It's very, like, the ending of the game is very reflective of the time you've spent with it. And makes me want to go back and play it again. So yeah, I am on the Weird West train for sure. I will say my enjoyment of the game was like a curb, like opening. I wasn't so sure. The controls and the camera pissed me off so much. And once I got through that after a couple hours, and once I realized how dynamic I was kind of playing it as a linear game. And then when I slowly realized how dynamic it was, I could not get away from it. It was just like, yeah, and the vibe and the presentation and the music and all that stuff the UI is just so slick. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm excited to play it. I haven't played it. You're the expert. You two are the experts. I'm just getting like hyped up on this game so much now that I have it in my Steam library.
I'm gonna ruin it for you now, probably, because I've overhyped it.
No, I'm happy to hear. I was curious, when you do, like you say, there's multiple journeys. So are these like new game pluses, and then is it like near where it's like there's new opportunities, or is it just new game plus? Do you keep your stats, and then you can just pick different choices?
Okay, if you want to be like completely, this isn't even a spoiler, but if you do want to be completely vanilla on this, just like skip ahead 2 minutes or whatever. Basically, there are 5 characters you play in this story, and the stories happen in order. So I guess you lose the character that you had, but you can go back and meet your old character and get all your shit off them. You can also hire them as a buddy, and they come along on the journey with you. Because when you're in the game, you can hire people. You can hire 2 other characters to basically fight alongside you. So for large parts of the end of the game, I was going back to the original towns, and these characters are going, and the way they interact. And I won't tell you how it all works and what the sort of like overarching story is that's going on. But yeah, like if you get a horse again, your saddlebags are full of all the stuff that you had in the previous journey, no matter which horse you buy from what town. So they're very good at, like, the minute you meet your old character, all your inventory goes back into you immediately. They don't even, all the keys that you stole, all that sort of stuff. So if you get the bank vault code from somebody, now you'll have it with the new character. So it's a bit of a shock the first time it happens, because there are 2 progression systems in the game. One of them is character based, and it's basically like the different special attack moves that you have with each character, because you can like have this like silent sniper shot and all these other things, and they have a couple of character specific moves as well, because some of the characters, they're all different, right? I won't get into it, but like the first one is just a regular lady who was a sheriff, and then it gets weird. The next characters are weird in the West. And then the other, I guess, unlock system you have is global. So that you'll have that, stuff like that's kind of more like your lock picking, your ability to jump, your health, that sort of stuff is global. So it carries over with each character, which is cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that sold me on it even more. That's really cool.
It's neat because no one of the stories overstays its welcome, but also you feel like the story continues. Like, I really liked the first character. I really liked the second character. It was so interesting. The third character was, I think each of them got better actually, as you went along. The fourth one is the one where I didn't vibe with the character so much, and that's where I went into chaos mode. But you get to involve them again. You know what I mean? You get to go back and check on them and see how they did afterwards. And ultimately, the game is about the trials that those characters were going through. It's about what you decided to do with this character, because some of the characters are victims, some of them are perpetrators, most of them are in a very morally gray area. Some of them think they're good guys or maybe are bad guys. Some think they're bad guys. Maybe it's really smart, I think. And what you do with those characters is part of it. I really want. I would love one of you guys to play this game. It would be neat. It's there's a lot of it vibes with. I think I was talking to Jeremy about this before. It vibes with the sort of the desert, desert stories and desert humor, that gallows humor that exists, and how when you're Jeremy, you've talked a lot about when you're out in the desert and you're sort of it's very self-reflective, in being in that world. And when you watch old movies, like cowboy movies, a lot of them are fairly morally black and white, let's say, about the saviors and who the baddies are. But the best ones are the ones that are about that weirdness, that gray area where you're not quite sure. And this game does a fantastic job of setting that all up. I think it's, you could have just had the West as window dressing. It would have been a good setting for just if you imagine Divinity, but it's in the West, that'd be really cool. But the inspiration for it in terms of tone and story and ethos of the entire experience is oh, you couldn't have done this in any other. This is because this is about the West. I get it. So it's really cool. I've really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm super excited to play it because some of those morally ambiguous westerns are some of my favorite movies. Even oh god, I wish I could remember the name of it. There's one where Clint Eastwood rolls into a town that's it was filmed on Mono Lake, which Danny and I have camped very close to before. I think we've both separately been there before.
About time this town has a new sheriff.
He rolls into a town. I'll have to look this up later in the pod so I can drop
Bishop,
is it? It's not far north of there, but right. He rolls into this little town and basically they've been harassed by bandits, and the course of the movie is essentially him kind of trying to defend the town from bandits, but he is a terrible person. He commits a sexual assault in the movie in the first 30 minutes, and he's the hero, and it is terrifying. It is a hard watch. It is maybe the most weirdly it's kind of like Charles Bronson's Death Wish if Charles Bronson was a way worse dude. But yeah, there's even though it's a hard watch, some of those movies are interesting because they're there's a lot of Scorsese movies that are about bad people where it's not appraising their behavior or telling you that it's good or kind of vindicating them. It's a story about just look how fucked up this dude is and look at all these fucked up things that happen around him.
Because at least as a rich man, when I have to face my problems, I show up in the back of a limo wearing a $2,000 suit and a $40,000 gold fucking watch.
Yeah, what in this one, it's a lot of what will you do based on your morals or values, or based on the values of the society you're in, or what will you do when no one's looking, or how do people react to you? You play as certain characters in this where I played as one character and talked to somebody in the world who I saved, and they were really nice to me when I played, and then I went back as this other character and they were super racist to me, and I was what the oh, okay. Even the NPC who was a nice person ended up being a complete piece of shit when I was this other person. And it's not overwrought, and it comes in various layers as well, like these random NPCs to actual story characters that you realize are maybe not as virtuous as you thought they were, and even your own characters as well. It's neat.
That's like an interesting function of fiction is kind of the like, because if you interact with a person in real life who's like a real piece of shit, it's hard to appreciate them because it's kind of just like a bummer that person is like real and can like actually harm people in the real world. But then when you watch a piece of fiction with someone who's like not a great person, it gives you enough distance to kind of like appreciate them as a character. Or like this is a weird poll to compare, but Peggy Hill from King of the Hill is like kind of like a toxic narcissist. It's like
right.
You're impersonating a nun.
With the gajillion things that are right about this, you zoom right in on the one negative.
Often like not a great person, but you're allowed to love her because not only is she kind of in the context of a lot of these other flawed characters, but you also like you have the distance. Like she's not impacting you negatively, and so you can kind of like appreciate the comedy of the situation in the abstract. And like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to compare Clint Eastwood and Peggy Hill, but in a weird way, it kind of like gives you the distance to appreciate these like kind of, you know, morally gray or like evil characters.
Yeah, there's an old Marcus Aurelius quote that I'm trying to remember that's basically about this, about like you have to imagine a world in which there are like meddlers and, you know, bad people and all this sort of stuff. To imagine a world where they don't exist is ridiculous. So you have to expect you will meet these people in the world, and then you can appreciate that they're meddlers and, you know, do wrongdoers or whatever. You know, like there is texture to the world, and it's I think it's interesting. It was interesting, I think, because I don't know if we have always lived in a very judgmental society about this type of stuff. It seems like we certainly are confronted with that a lot at the moment. But it was, yeah, it's an interesting game that sort of gets to play with this. And I was actually disappointed when I started the game because I thought I was going to create my own character. And then when I was put in the shoes of this woman, she's like, well, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, this character who's like sort of knows how to use a gun in her former sort of profession. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess I'll have to play as her for like the whole game or for something. I wasn't quite sure. But none of the stuff I was talking about you could have done if you made your own character. Like it just wouldn't have made sense. You had to sort of occupy these people and their lives for a short period of time for it to work. And yeah, I can't really talk around it anymore. So I don't know my Marcus Aurelius quotes off by heart. Enough about Weird West. Let's get on to Frank, who of course has just absolute chaos written down here. Snoop Dogg in Call of Duty Vanguard. Tell us all about it.
Dropping in like it's hot.
I'm a huge fan of just the sillier a cosmetic is or a licensing deal in a video game is, I'm all about it. So for 420, for the World War II, the World War II Call of Duty, they introduced the Snoop Dogg pack.
It's nothing sacred.
This feels this is like, I'm not going to say this is disrespectful, but I'm just saying if I was a World War II veteran, I'd be like, what the hell? What were we fighting for over there?
That's exactly what they were fighting for.
That's true. Honestly, you're not
freedom
wrong.
To live in a world where Snoop Dogg is an unlockable character. Does he cost money? Do you have to pay for him?
Yeah, it's $20. But he comes, so it's Snoop Dogg, and he comes with 3 of his custom weapons. You have a Bong Ripper sniper rifle. You have the West Coast Bling assault rifle, and then you have the Shiznit, which is an SMG. So it's like Snoop Dogg in this like extremely gaudy outfit. You also get a weed spray, so it's like Jet Set Radio. Like you can spray weed emblems everywhere.
Awesome.
You also, I'm trying to think of other things. Oh yeah, you have weed tracer bullets. So when you fire bullets, they're little pot leaves that shoot out, neon green pot leaves. And if you get headshots, your opponent's head, instead of splattering like a watermelon, their head turns into a puff of weed smoke.
Oh yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Just like Stalingrad. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, not one step back, not one puff backwards.
So like with Call of Duty Cold War, which is like 80s theme, they got really wacky with it. And it was like, okay, this is like pretty cool. With Call of Duty Vanguard, they were like, no, we're gonna keep it like pretty calm, and we're not gonna get crazy with it. And then, yeah, and then all of a sudden there's Snoop Dogg. So my friends and I last night, we had all 6 of us as Snoop Dogg. So our entire team was just Snoop Dogg. And so like it has to be so unnerving on the other team just seeing 6 different Snoop Dogg. Like it's hysterical because the graphics, it looks amazing. But
I'm
we're all
watching
just-
the MVP highlights
Oh,
here, which
yeah.
I guess is that if you win the round.
Yep.
And they are absolutely ridiculous. Snoop Dogg is wearing like what can only be described as like a sort of a World War II era pimp coat. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And he has like a
What's
medallion and he's smoking a cigar. So I guess that's how
Yes.
they got around it. Is he smoking? Because you can do that in every country then. You can't have just weed in every, federally, I mean, it's still legal here, but like he's like offering the cigar to a Nazi.
Yep, I think it's called like Pass It. So like when you win around in Call of Duty, the winning team, your top 3 players all do their fancy show off move. So every night when we won our round, you would have the same 3 animations of Snoop Dogg stabbing someone and then passing the blunt, stabbing someone, passing the blunt, stabbing someone, passing the blunt, and it was just like we did that for like 2 hours last night. It was like this is insane. This is like this is why I love Call of Duty.
There's an image in my head right now of like there's like a fire hose, like like at a protest when they spray people with a fire hose and it like sends
Yeah.
them flying. If the fire hose of pop culture is spraying down me and Frank, I am getting thrown to the ground brutally and like tossed around while Frank is like dancing in the mist like it's a sprinkler in like summertime. Like I don't know how. I don't know. you're thriving where I'm being pummeled.
It's I want to say it's like I hadn't touched Vanguard in like 5 months. Like all my friends and I went back to Call of Duty Cold War, which we all have John McClane and like Scream and Judge Dredd mask. So now that they added dumb cosmetics to Vanguard, like the game still isn't great to play. Cold War is much better, but I will say it's very fun playing as Snoop Dogg. And so I hope I hope they add even more nonsense into this World War II game. But I will say that you get a big bang for your buck, and I will say you saw so many players playing Snoop Dogg that I think this is going to have an effect where the majority of the player base is just going to be Snoop Dogg, and it's like Snoop Dogg has completely taken over this game.
Wow. Not since Dr. Dre and Eminem in Quake 3 Arena has the world of rap and online shooters been so happy. Thank you very much for your reporting, Frank, the target demo of these DLCs. Howley, I appreciate it.
Frank's like a war correspondent.
Exactly. Reporting from the front lines of 420. Really appreciate it. How much is Snoop Dogg?
$20 or 2,400.
Excuse me?
$20?
2,400 COD points.
$20.
$20
for a fucking skin.
And 3 guns with weed emblems on it and a weed spray. And yeah.
You could get an eighth of an ounce of shitty weed for that. And have the real Snoop Dogg experience.
Just think how much. No, because how many of you were there? 6?
6, yeah.
So $120 worth of weed, Jeremy. You could get some.
You could get half a zip for that. You could get a shitty zip somewhere.
Man, there you go. Frank Howley, dedication to the cause. Feel free to expense it. Jesse's not here, and I really wanted to talk to him about Rogue Legacy 2, so I'll keep it brief. I played Rogue Legacy 2 based on his glowing review of the almost out of early access version of the game. Yeah, it's really good. It's what he was saying. It's super varied. The classes there's a multitude of them, and they're interesting. It is still hard. The graphics are so sharp. Like, just the animations are beautiful. There's a lot more like weird, I don't know what to call them, but like, there's a meta, I guess, but it's like there's these interesting weird things that are happening, special areas you can go into, special challenge kind of room style stuff. They had some of that in the original game, but way more interesting. I was in a room yesterday where there was like these ghosts telling me like almost like fables or something, or like little tricks, and then I'd have to listen to what they said and try something in the room. Like, it was like, oh, this is a little different. Yeah, very into it. I think it was kind of like what you were saying to him last week, Jeremy, about like, that original Rogue Legacy kind of came out pretty early in the, roguelite rejuvenation that happened over the past 10 years. And obviously everything's moved along, and how would they react to that? And will they make something that feels a little bit old school, or will they make something that feels modern? And it definitely feels modern, the latter. Like they did a great job on this. They've designed the shit out of this game. So yeah, I'm excited to play more. I kind of played a bunch of it, and now I kind of feel like with these types of games, it's a bit like Elden Ring, and some of these games are like Demon Souls, where I need to commit to them a little bit, or like Dead Cells. You know what I mean? You kind of need to just play that game for a while. So I'm gonna wait, I think, until it hits 1.0. I think it was the end of this month to properly dive into it. I'm gonna take a little break, but yeah, super good. And Jesse obviously is not here at the moment, but he will talk to us about what he had written down here next week, that he finished Dying Light 2, which I've yet to start. That's on my list of games to play over the next couple of months as things slow down a little bit here. Did any of you guys write these TV shows down here? I don't know if Jesse wrote these or you did. Did any of you watch Our Flag Means Death?
Not me.
No, I watched a bit of it a couple of nights ago. I think Jesse might have written this down. So let's keep that for next week as well, I guess.
I watched the new season of Better Call Saul started.
Oh yeah.
Which is a fantastic show. I won't talk about any of the details of it, obviously, but it is that show does kind of the same thing as Breaking Bad really well, where it's the counterpoint between sort of the like white suburban people who are like dipping their toes into the world of crime and being horrified by it, and then it's like cut to Mexico, and it's like there's a weird red color grade on everything, and people are like hiding in a truck holding 2 pistols by their head.
Right.
But it does it's like it's very compelling. I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm very easily turned off by most TV and movies for some reason. I don't know. It's just hard for me to get into it. But yeah, Better Call Saul, highly recommend it. 6 seasons for you to enjoy if you've not started yet.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I haven't completed Breaking Bad either, so I gotta wait until I have like some really bad hospital time or something. That's my in the back pocket for when I break my leg or get a terrible chronic illness. I'll finally have something to look forward to. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to do it though, because then, you know, like if God forbid, knock on wood, something horrible happens, like you're walking, your leg snaps in half, then the first thing you think is like, well, at least I can finally watch Breaking Bad.
Exactly. Something to look forward to. All right, let's leave it there then as a podcast. A bunch of stuff hitting up on Noclip over the next week or so. The Among Us doc is obviously up. If you've not checked out our Black Mesa one now, it's like 1.2 million views or something. Pretty crazy. So make sure you check that one out. We do have a really interesting video coming next week. It's the first of our gameplay showcases where we are finally getting out a bunch of the gameplay stuff that we have. So obviously when we put out documentaries, we often get assets. Sometimes we source them ourselves. Sometimes we get them from people. We always have to be a little bit political and careful about what we show about these games because there's a lot of stakeholders involved. So we've basically been going through some of our old docs, looking at some of the footage we have, like the, unreleased Doom game, Half-Life Ravenholm, LMNO, all that sort of stuff, and just seeing, is there a way we can get this sort of stuff out? Is there a way we can get some of that concept arts we have, all that type of thing, like get them up on archive.org, just so, God forbid, my house gets blown up in a tornado nuclear explosion or something, that this stuff exists somewhere else. I mean, we have it backed up in other places as well, but that we can get this sort of stuff out into the world. So it's part of a bigger process, but one of the cool things is next week we're going to be publishing a gameplay showcase showing off a bunch of the footage from Half-Life Ravenholm that we did not put in the documentary. So we had about an hour's worth of footage recorded, like maybe an hour and 10 minutes. About 10 minutes of that is just like menus and stuff. So that's all been cut out. We used probably 7 to 10 minutes of it in the documentary already. So kind of most of the big beats of it. But I know there are people out there who wanted to sort of, see what the flow of the game was like, or see if they could remake it and that type of thing. I also didn't want to just dump the footage online, because then we might start hearing from people about doing that, or people might be reticent to share stuff with us again in the future. So the balancing act is that I've basically done is created this gameplay showcase video, which is the footage of the game, no watermark, no commentary, just the game footage itself. But every once in a while, it comes back to me and I basically give some context for what you're about to see. I explain stuff that Sebastian Maton was telling us, for instance. When I was playing, Jeremy was there too, filming off camera, just in case the shadow play didn't work. And Sebastian was telling us a bunch of stuff about the game, but I didn't want to put the commentary over the gameplay, so I sort of relay that stuff to people before each chapter. And it's basically all the gameplay that we have, or the 99%, all the usable gameplay that we have of the game with this sort of archival ethos in nature. So we'll be putting that up on the YouTube channel. We'll be putting, we're trying to see if I can put up the gameplay up on archive.org as well. There's a couple of things to work out here, but we will be getting that up hopefully next week is the idea. So excited to finally get that out there. Patreon show coming up this week for patrons as well. We're also thinking, me and Jesse were talking about maybe doing, because we have the patron exclusive podcast episodes, which we haven't done for the past 2 months because we've been trying to just keep it on this one. But we're thinking about maybe doing like a movie club or something where like all of us watch some terrible video game movie and then talk about it exclusively on the Patreon feed. So if you want to support us and get access to that sort of stuff, patreon.com/Noclip. We're at Noclip Video on Twitter, at Danny O'Dwyer, at Garasha, at Frank Howley, at Jeremy B. Jane. Thanks to Jesse for producing this. Sorry he couldn't be here for the rest of the show. And before we go, gentlemen, what are you playing for the rest of your week? Frank, what you got? Except for Snoop Dogg in it on the fucking beaches of Normandy.
I'm still playing World of Warcraft Burning Crusade. My priest is level 16. They also did announce Lich King Classic.
Ooh.
So I don't know. I mean, like this is the game I play to relax. So
yeah,
I think I will bounce off at some point. But one thing I like about now is I'm playing at my own place because I don't really have any friends on my server. Whereas before it's like, oh god, I got to catch up to do this dungeon, and you burn out. So now it's like, I want to pop on for like 30 minutes, do one quest, and I'm good. Like, so yeah, honestly, Burning Crusade, and then playing some very unique indie games for a project. So
yes,
working on that.
Yes, yeah, getting all that gameplay. Jeremy, what about you?
I have been hard at work learning about A-Star pathfinding so that I can make my own tactics RPG, because my friend group can never get together to play tactics RPGs as a group. So I decided that I would make some friends out of ones and zeros.
Terrific.
Yeah, so learning about A-Star pathfinding is it is a whole wormhole. We can talk about it later, but basically it's an AI trying to find the shortest path to something, and it is destroying my brain to try to reverse engineer it into my own project.
Well, best of luck with that. I'm going to be playing a game that is under embargo, but I believe will be out of embargo by the time we talk. By the time the podcast goes up next week, yeah, it will be. So I can finally talk about that. It's a kind of an indie game. It's not like a big AAA game or anything, but it's an indie game that I've been really looking forward to. So I'm excited to chat to you all about that. And then I guess lastly, a little bit of housekeeping before we go. We're thinking about streaming this podcast. None of this will happen for at least a month because Frank is moving where he's living, and he's in control of all this that type of streaming stuff. So we want to make sure it's all set up right and dandy. But what we were thinking, and this is mostly for the folks who watch or I guess listen to the YouTube version. So if you're listening to this on YouTube right now, this is pretty much for you. Because we edit this podcast and Jesse does all the awesome work on the post-production, putting in all the little audio sound bites and stuff, that's not going to change. The MP3 version of this, or if you played this on, you can go to Noclip. I think it's just noclippodcast.libsyn.com. I forget. If you just type it in, you can play. We have a player online. You can do this. We're on Spotify. We're on everything, right? You can. There's loads of places to listen, and that will always be the edited version. But what we were thinking is maybe if we were going to stream this, obviously we wouldn't refer to the chat. We'd produce it the same way as if we were just live to tape or whatever. But instead of putting the edited versions on YouTube, like the MP3 version on YouTube, which has no camera, we might just put the archive of the stream, like top and tail it, so it's still tight, but put that version up because some people like to see the cameras of the folks talking instead of just basically we have a sort of a very light graphic with a bit of motion on it on YouTube. So it's not that big a deal. It's just a question. If you're on the YouTube listening now, jump in the comments to let us know if you'd prefer to have the sort of MP3 version that exists all edited by Jesse on the YouTube channel, or if you would be more happy with a less edited version that has our beautiful visages so you can see how we all look. Because Jeremy put that show up on Noclip Crew and people were like, oh, that's what Jeremy looks like. But listening to him on the podcast, and I thought he was a 7-foot tall Amazonian woman or something. But turns out he's...
It's a face reveal.
Yeah, they should have known when I made that Gordon Freeman joke on our behind the scenes
True.
filming. Yeah, exactly.
The goatee was a dead giveaway.
Exactly. I have like a ponytail at the moment. This is ridiculous. I don't know what to do with this stupid gray hair. Gerald of Rivia over here.
You got to get like a scrunchie back there.
I do, yeah. I've been stealing my daughters. It's wild.
Yeah, dude. Then you look like one of those guys who like has a show on History Channel about forging iron.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get way into whittling. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Drop us a review if you want, or don't. I don't care. Whatever. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.